Good morning, all. This is John Heerdink, and happy Veterans Day. Today, we salute all who have served and continue to serve, and I appreciate the valuable time that you are giving us today, and appreciate you being on the Tribe Public presentation that we've titled today, Tailoring GLP-1 Weight Loss Treatments, Innovative Approaches to Personalizing Dosing. This Tribe event is with co-host Jeb Besser, CEO of Modular Medical. It trades on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol MODD, and Modular Medical is an insulin delivery system technology company preparing to launch a market expansion product with a more accessible and easier to prescribe and easier to pay for and live with technology. This event is targeted to be approximately 30 minutes, so you can get about your day. And know that we'll be seeking to publish the event video at our Tribe Public YouTube channel as soon as we can, either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. And you can view that or skim through that if you've missed anything or want to review any of the information that is shared today. Again, please note that I'm the managing member of Tribe Public. Our website is tribepublic.com. That's TRIBE public.com. Please note that I'm also the managing director of Vista Partners, a registered investment advisor in California. And its website is Vista P Global, VISTAP global.com, which we create a great deal of understanding from the Eli Lillys of the world and Teslas down to small companies you've never heard of. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each site and know that I'm currently a shareholder of Modular Medical, and I'm an advisor to the company, but I am not acting as an investment advisor today capacity for Tribe members, and all should consult with an advisor and do your complete due diligence if you're not an advisor yourself about this company or any other company you might hear about on the Tribe Public platform. Note also that the Tribe Public platform enables investors and consumers to gain direct corporate access to the leaders of companies that they care about through our speaking engagements at in-person luncheons and dinner events across the U.S. And now we're up to 35 event sites as we ramp things back up in the U.S. And adding those as we opportunistically can add those across the U.S. as other Tribe members compel us to have these leaders come out and speak and meet and learn even more through these in-person events. We also, again, these Tribe webinars have now reached over 31 plus countries, and we continue to be amazed at the interest that we are able to drive through this process and are excited to continue to learn alongside you. I'd also like to thank you for all participating and for all the questions that you've already submitted for today's speaker. Again, Jeb Besser. And if you think of any other questions along the way, we'll do our best to address them, and you can send those through the Zoom chat feature during this event. And if we don't get them all done today, maybe we can find a time to get Jeb back on at a later time. Now let's get started. Today's co-hosts, again, Jeb Besser with Modular Medical, Nasdaq MODD. And as the company's been receiving a great deal of attention lately, as they announced in September that they had received U.S. Food and Drug Administration FDA clearance to market and sell its Mod 1 pump in the United States. So congratulations to them and the hard work that they put in order to do that, and for the work that they are putting forth to launch in 25. So, Jeb, if you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to be the CEO of Modular Medical, and then we can go through any slides that you might have today. And thank you again for co-hosting.
Thanks for having me, John, and thanks as well to everyone who's taking time out of their Veterans Day to listen to a little bit more about the story. I'm not going to run through the presentation on our basic business, although I can go back and I'll just say I became the CEO of Modular in February of 22 because I'm also the portfolio manager of Manchester Management, which is the largest shareholder of MODD, and after the company uplisted to the Nasdaq, the board decided that it would be good for me to lead the company through this period of time. So my salary is $1. I am entirely incentivized with the equity, just like everyone else who buys the stock. And look, we think this represents a great opportunity in our base insulin delivery business. But that's not really why I'm doing the webinar today. That would require a much longer presentation. And, I would refer you to our previous presentations on why we think the base insulin delivery business is very exciting. The reason that we're here today is that we announced proof of concept results in our GLP-1 application for the Mod 1 pump late last week. And, I thought it would be helpful to come on for those that seem to have an interest in it after our last webinar, where we talked about why we were doing this study and review what the results were and where we take it from here and why the results are interesting, frankly. So I have the slide up here that we normally have in our deck about this program because it's helpful to review what we're trying to do here. The GLP-1 market obviously is huge. 5 years, Morgan Stanley projects that 5 years from now, it will be a $150 billion a year category. So obviously people are very excited about it. There are more than 100 drugs in development that we know about, and probably, based on an 80-20 rule, that probably means there are 500 plus compounds that have gone through some kind of proof of concept already in this space. What is Modular Medical, which is a medical device company, doing in this area? Well, first of all, I want to make something very, very clear. If you can tolerate a weekly shot and titrate up like, very good portion of the population and get great results using a GLP-1 shot to control your blood sugar and your weight, congratulations, that's good for you. I think it's very unlikely that you will wear a pump. However, we know, and this is going to be repetitive, but we know from the Blue Cross Blue Shield data that was published in June that 30% of the patients are off therapy within 4 weeks and 50% within 12 weeks. And that's some combination of cost, inconvenience, lack of performance, especially in terms of controlling hunger in the later part of a shot's life, and GI symptoms and side effects related to the current shots. So what do we think is a solution for that? The problem is right now, if let's say you're on Ozempic, you have a bad experience, and then your doctor says, well, my only real alternative for you right now is Mounjaro, which works pretty much the same way. And I'm going to give you Mounjaro, and you might be sick for another week, vomiting, nausea, and then potentially lack of hunger suppression late in the week. You might very well say, no, what else do you have for me? And right now, the only thing that's available is like an older weight loss drug like Eucemia or bariatric surgery, which virtually no one will do. So there's a gap in the market. And what you don't want to do is use a long acting to try and manage this problem, because if you do, then you're committed to whatever that dose is for a week, because that's how the molecules are designed. So what we tried to do with this proof of concept study, and while the study was done in rodents, lots of applications can be studied in rodents, and you get results that might or might not be applicable to humans. The rodent data in these metabolic treatments tends to be very, very good in rodents, with the one issue that rodents have a much, much faster metabolism than humans. You can't dose them exactly the same way. However, it is highly predictive of what's going to happen in a human. So in this study, what we did was we had 5 arms. We had an arm and we did not use our pump because we didn't want to introduce the additional variable of a pump that had never been used on a mouse in a brand new trial to see what might happen, because it might frustrate them, it might irritate them, it wasn't designed for them. So we went with Gubra, which is a Danish company, which is the gold standard in doing rodent metabolic studies. It's literally right next door to Novo Nordisk. Most of their employees are ex-Novo Nordisk people. They have 250 employees, and this is all they do. And we used an implanted osmotic pump, and for the rapid-acting GLP-1 arms, and then we used a daily bolus of semaglutide, which is the scientific name for Ozempic, for the mice in the Ozempic arm as a control. In the study, what we saw was that the Ozempic mice lost about 25% of their body weight with a daily bolus, which is how you're supposed to dose a mouse. Because if you use a long-acting weekly shot, the mouse's metabolism is so fast that most of the drug is gone in a very short period of time. You won't get through a week, for sure. So those results can be highly misleading. And we saw that the mice that were dosed with Ozempic lost about 25% of their body weight. However, they lost about 8% of their body weight in the first 48 hours. So if you think about that from a human being's perspective, that would be fairly horrific. I mean, literally no food or water intake, just pretty much flat on your back. So if you're thinking about the non-responder population that might be experiencing issues with these products, that might be a really good proxy for that. So in the other three arms, what we tried to do was we were dosing this rapid-acting GLP-1, which is old and generic, which is an older drug that's generic, and has been studied extensively as a 2 to 3 times a day bolus in humans with no real evidence of weight loss. I think in one study, there was 3 pounds of weight loss in 12 months. Not very impressive when you're giving someone a shot 3 times a day. So you can see why the product wouldn't have a lot of appeal in its current dosage form. However, when given as a continuous drip, at 50 micrograms in our trial, what we saw was that the mice lost about 13% of their body weight, and it was a very smooth curve. There was no dramatic reduction in food or water intake like we saw. Blood sugar control in all 3 of the rapid-acting arms was actually better than it was with Ozempic, which is pretty important when you're talking about someone with type 2 diabetes. And that was an interesting result. But the most interesting and compelling result out of this trial was that we had another arm where we were dosing at 30 micrograms on a continuous basis daily instead of 50. So 40% less drug in the system all the time. And then we gave a single 20 microgram bolus to get up to the total amount of drug that we were giving with the 50 continuous. And the idea there was to see if we could dose much lower on the basal side. And by giving a bolus around mealtime, for the mice, could we get the same weight loss? And we did. And that's very novel. And I think that's the first time anyone's showed any kind of data like that. The belief going into this trial was you just dose at the maximum level on a constant basal drip, and that's it. That's the most effective way to get results with your GLP-1. And dosing higher on a bolus basis doesn't matter, especially since when we gave them this bolus, look, there are some vagaries that you do with the rodent where mice eat at night, you turn the lights off, you throw the food in the cage, you give them the shot, and then you see what happens. But the food is actually in there for, I don't know, 3-4 hours, whereas the shot, we know in the mouse's body only lasts for an hour. So it's very possible that the shot wore off and then they started grazing at some point later on, which mitigated some of the effect. But we still saw this in slightly more weight loss in the arm that was getting the 30 micrograms plus 20 bolus, as we did with the 50 continuous. So that's good. And that result was also consistent with the other arm that we ran, where we gave them 50 micrograms continuous, and then we gave them 20 micrograms on top. And previous thinking was adding another bolus on top that lasts for an hour should not significantly change the weight loss profile, but it did. They lost an additional 25% of their weight down up to 17. And if you think about that from a human perspective, humans are a lot more honest about announcing when they're about to eat, and they're going to eat more frequently than just when you turn the lights off. And so you'll have probably a more consistent amount of drug on board, and you'll have more opportunities to bolus up. But because it's a rapid acting, when you bolus up, if you've gone too high and you feel a little uncomfortable, it's not going to last that long. You're not making a week-long commitment. You're making an hour-long or a 30-minute commitment. And for someone with a sensitive metabolism, that's really important. And when you're thinking about how do we target non-responders, that's one opportunity. Target non-responders. And also, if you think about the opportunity to find out what your maximally tolerated dose is, if you put a pump on, instead of doing the 3 weeks at a single dosage, okay, I'm comfortable with that. Now we're going to do 3 weeks at the next dosage, and on and on and on until you reach the maximally tolerated dose. If you could go up in smaller increments faster without the consequences, you could reach that maximally tolerated dose in a much quicker fashion and then switch to a weekly shot. And there's a very good possibility that some of the people who have GI issues with these products have it because their ideal dose is between the fixed doses that are available, right? Maybe you're a 6.5 and the doses are only available in 2.5 increments. So you're either a 5 or a 7.5, and the 5 isn't enough and the 7.5 is too much. And we don't think so. Where do we go from here? Where we go from here is we can either run a human study with the current generic rapid acting to show in humans that this novel synergy between basal and bolus exists. Or, one of the reasons that we put out this release and that we're excited about this opportunity is that we want all these other drugs that are in development, and possibly drugs that aren't in active development anymore because there was no way to dose them appropriately. Is there an opportunity to take something that's sitting in someone's broom closet and repurpose it on their dime, not ours, frankly, with a novel delivery method where they could get additional IP on a drug device combo and potentially get additional synergies serving this non-responder market? So we think it's a big opportunity. I mean, I think our pump is uniquely positioned to address this market because if you are familiar with the Mod 1, you know that we have a button, we have a 3 ml reservoir, which is absolutely critical in terms of delivering enough drug to last for 3 days in one of these pumps. We have a low-cost solution that can be bundled with the current cost of these drugs, like an auto-injector as a method of delivery. And this mechanical delivery is both easy to learn and highly synergistic. And how much work do we have to do to change our existing device to address this application right now? 0. I've already gotten multiple calls from people who are like, well, it seems like you're pivoting the company to something else because the insulin thing already isn't working. Not true. 99.9% of the company's effort is still dedicated to our core insulin delivery opportunity, targeting almost pumpers. But it would be foolish, given the serendipitous fit between our platform and this application, not to explore it. So that's the story. It's a very novel finding. It's a very exciting finding, and it positions us potentially to address this market with a very different spin and a very different approach.
Interesting, Jeb. I definitely like the word serendipitous. Thanks for bringing that up on Veterans Day here. Always key on keywords like that. Do you want to address a couple of questions here that we received?
Let's rock and roll through the questions, John.
Okay. So in no certain order, here is the first one is what is the term? And by the way, I remind everyone, if you have additional questions, again, the Zoom chat feature allows that. So try to send it to me as quickly as possible. Again, we're only talking about 30 minutes a day. So it's 8:21 here in San Francisco, and we'll be off here around 8:30. So be efficient. So here's a couple questions here. What is the turnaround time on a possible approval in UK, approved in EU? Have you submitted for regulatory approval? Kind of connected, and I think that's a bit pre-early, but it's early. But can you maybe speak to what the market is there at least, or where you are with that?
We're talking about the core insulin pump application, I assume, and not the GLP-1 application here.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case here.
Yeah, because this rapid acting GLP-1, I believe, is not actually cleared in Europe.
Yeah.
So that would be quite a long timeline there before we'd be submitting anything there, and we're not a drug company. So as far as the overseas regulatory filings, the requirements are different in the UK now from the rest of Europe, are different than in the Middle East, are different from Israel, or different from other markets as well. So we've brought on a person who's handling all our international regulatory efforts, and those applications are underway in terms of preparation, but we have not submitted any of them yet. Most of those territories require you to have product coming off your actual production line, unlike the FDA, who allows you to have product that you produced in your, that wasn't for human use in terms of the clearance process itself. So we plan to submit those in the near term, but they are not done yet.
Okay. And then it says to deploy GLP-1 from mod device, do you have to get another 510 clearance, or what is that process again? Can you take us through that thinking with a partner or with...
Well, actually, it would be a drug device combo, because you're fundamentally changing the way the drug is delivered from the way it's currently approved. Like if we're talking about the rapid acting GLP-1 that we used in this trial, the drug's been on the market since 2009, 2010, and it's currently generic. But it's only cleared right now as a 3 times a day bolus, 2 or 3 times a day bolus. So we'd be talking about a different dosage size, and we'd be talking about delivering it in a different way. So that would be a drug device combo application. It would not be a simple 510K predicate device.
Okay.
I would think anyone that would fund this would want that too, because they don't want to do all the work and then have, if it is this compound, and then have 8 other companies that can play immediately and ride on their coattails.
Fair enough. Fair enough. On the GLP-1 app, it says, can you discuss a little more where we go from here? I understand many may be interested in it, but what gets you to go from looking at it to working with it with Modular? How do you affect that, I guess, in the marketplace? How do you...
So, I'll just say I think the reason this release reads a little technical is that we're sort of putting out an open casting call for, if you've got a compound that isn't the one that we're currently working with, and you are interested in partnering with us on it, we're an arms merchant. We're happy to partner with you on it, because, as long as it doesn't require some major change in materials or design of our product, which we don't think it would. So we've got, we'd like to get the people who have these compounds in their broom closet to think about, maybe there's another way to deploy this in a way that might allow them to have a differentiated offering. And that might include the current innovators who dominate the market today, because I suspect that Mounjaro and Ozempic were not the first molecules that they tried when they thought about entering this market. There might very well be other molecules, and not just in their libraries, but in someone else's library, that just, were very effective, but didn't have as good a delivery profile. Maybe they only lasted in the body for 2 days or 3 days and not a week. So where we go from here is we either find partners who want to repeat this study with their own compound, or take it immediately into humans in an IRB setting, or we do a small proof of concept study in humans with this compound, to show that this effect translates well from rodents into humans. Once again, not a big distraction, not a very long study, not very expensive, just proving out the application so that people can feel confident that they can partner with us on it.
Got it. Thank you. Here's a question. What is the stability of the semi-glutide peptide in a pump at body temperature?
Well, that's a good question. And to be clear, we did not use sema in a pump in this application. It was a once a day bolus, because the gold standard in mice is to use semaglutide as a daily bolus, because if you give it as a multi-day injection, it won't work as well, because the mouse's metabolism burns it off too quickly.
Got it. On a partnership front, it says, any proof points you'd like to offer, and would this potentially create new IP?
We did file some IP around this. Hasn't been granted, obviously, because it's brand spanking new, but yes, we did. So yes, it would potentially create, obviously, many people have prior art on simply using a pump as a basal to deliver a drug. I don't think you could patent that, but I think the idea that there actually is a synergy here in a GLP-1 between a basal and a bolus coming out of a pump is novel and different. And as I said, I believe this is the first trial we've ever heard of, at least in rodents, that proves that.
Got it. And then related to I guess going to market, how could you explain to us the manufacturing process around the Mod 1 right now, and what are the cost? What's your cost?
So as far as changing the manufacturing process for this application, we're not changing anything. The the dosing amounts required for insulin are as demanding, if not more demanding, than a GLP-1 application in terms of accuracy. So, and we're already delivering insulin, which is one of the more dangerous drugs on the market, and which is why the FDA doesn't allow human trials before you get cleared. So we feel that, using a GLP-1 is substantially safer. So there's no change in the manufacturing process. As far as the general update on manufacturing, I'm just going to reiterate what we said when we announced the clearance, which is that we're in the process of moving and validating the line to Mexico, and we will be in a position to make human use product for the U.S. market on that line early next year.
Okay. And then,
so no change in guidance there.
Okay, thank you, Jeb. Here's a question. Understand that 99.9% of the company's efforts are focused on core insulin delivery, bringing Mod 1 to the market. What's the base case path to revenue measured in quarters or years?
What's the base case for revenue?
Yeah, path to revenue.
Well, I mean, we expect to have revenue in the first half of next year, assuming that we're an independent entity and launching the product. As soon as part of the reason that we're doing, some small investigator-led studies pre-launch is that we want people to wear the product before we do a broad commercial launch. And as I've explained several times, the FDA does not allow us to pump insulin until we're cleared. So that's an important step that we'll be updating people on when we finish some basic usability studies beyond.
Actually, Jeb, I think maybe one way to address this question too is, I believe this question is from someone that's new to the story.
Oh,
so
okay.
maybe just share the almost pumper story, where you're filling, where this product fills that market and what that size of market is.
Right. Okay. Well, that's we have one slide that kind of addresses that very directly, which is this one, right? Which is that we survey, in a survey of 10% of the endocrinologists and nurse diabetes educators in the United States, we asked them what percentage of your multiple daily injectors, and this is a key point, not your current pumping not your patients who are currently on a pump, which is approximately 1 in 5 of the people who could benefit from having a pump that delivers a basal and a bolus. What percentage of them would you put on a pump that was easier to use, lower cost, less full featured? And they said 1 in 4. And at current pricing, 1 in 4 of those people would be a $3 billion market. And that's the market that we plan to address. We're not trying to take customers away from the current pump companies, because their products have been around for years, and are very effective, but very complex, very cumbersome, and very costly solutions to a very, very difficult problem. And we are simply addressing that problem with a different kind of product to address a totally different user base that has previously not been addressed, which is to provide the benefits of a pump while being able to manage it in less than 10 minutes a day, with less than 30 minutes of training burden, and by reusing the electronics, creating much lower cost solution that's still accessible to a lot of patients who have been left behind by the current solutions.
Okay. And then I think it's a helpful point for someone that's new to it to understand that there is appetite, has been expressed appetite in the marketplace by Medtronic, for instance, that was willing to purchase the Korean outfit. I think it's iFlow.
EOFlow. Yeah.
EOFlow, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. In May, you're talking about the EOFlow aborted acquisition, where Medtronic tried to buy a Korean company that had a product that was very, very similar to an insulin Omnipod, was not cleared in the US, had been cleared in Korea and Europe, and had less than 5,000 patients who had ever worn it. And Medtronic tried to buy them for $740 million in cash and abandoned the acquisition in December of 23. An interesting indication of what a company in this space might be worth.
Yeah, and the banding was because of an IP issue, right?
Yeah, I think it was IP, and I think it was a nervousness about whether or not at scale the product would actually have better margins than an insulin Omnipod.
Got it. Thank you. I think it's very important to understand that about this part of the story of Modular Medical, as it's is really leading it. But the GLP-1 is really interesting potential upside here, and with the data you just came out, made it even more line of sight these days.
Well, I think the other thing is, and I don't want to, once again, I don't want anyone to come away from this webinar thinking that we've lost focus completely and we're just off running after any little application we can think of. But the fact is, this is an very interesting delivery platform that we have for certain drugs and certain applications in general in the endocrine space, where the dosing levels are very small and the method of delivery is very, very important. And so, your value as a medical device that isn't cleared is a lot lower than it is in terms of being a potential partner, is a lot lower than it is if you are cleared for something that's as hard to handle as insulin.
Got it.
So maybe someone will come to us with another application and say, what else could you do with this?
Yeah.
And we're open to those possibilities. And I'll just point out, Insulet has historically done about 10% of their revenue with selling their pump to use to deliver an oncology agent for Amgen called Neulasta Onpro. So this is not by any means a brand new idea that you could use an insulin pump to deliver other drugs.
Interesting. Two things. One is regards to the patents families you have around this. Can you just a quick synopsis of that? And then additional question around IP was with the idea of bringing in a company to share in this GLP-1 sort of development, would you be sharing that IP with another company potentially?
Okay, so the 8 families of patents that we have are, you can't patent pumping insulin anymore. That ship sailed a long time ago. You can't patent connecting a insulin pump wirelessly with any other device. That was an old Medtronic patent, which has also since expired. Our patents are all around the way in which we pump insulin, which is different than everyone else. We're a linear peristaltic pump, and we use negative pressure to manipulate a thin film to move the insulin into an intermediate chamber, and then the cam picks it up. So if there is a mechanical failure, it actually pulls insulin away from the patient and out of the cam, out of the cannula, and back into the reservoir. So we think that it's a very, very safe way to deliver insulin. And it also allows us to use different materials because we are we're pulsing every 30 seconds. They're pulsing, the other companies are usually pulsing every 5 minutes. And that allows us 10 tries basically to equal the accuracy of their one by using air pressure, which we do have IP on, in order to sense what's left in the reservoir and how much we just pumped. As far as who owns the IP, we own the IP on the device. Presumably anyone who wants to deliver a drug in the GLP-1 space would own the IP around their compound, except for the one that we used in this trial, which is generic. But they might still have IP, or they might have some kind of Orange Book or DMF file exclusivity around the compound itself, even though it's generic.
Here's a couple of questions, and do you still have a minute to address?
I have as much time as you need.
Okay. You mentioned valuations of over 600 million when successful FDA approval or clearance of pumps aren't as good as yours. Why do you think this has occurred? Why you think this hasn't occurred, I guess? Any update on interest from strategic buyers and/or the possible hiring of a banker in the situation? And linked to that is, where do you see yourself in 6 months? So,
well, these are all great questions, and I guess I would say, I think the comment that I've made repeatedly is that there was never a pump company that was cleared for all people with diabetes, all adults with diabetes, that didn't achieve a $300 million market cap after clearance. And they didn't always keep it, but they did do that historically. So why that hasn't happened for us yet. I have to say that I'm not completely sure. That's up to Mr. Market to decide where we should be valued. I will say that I don't think there's nothing about our product that is technically inferior to the other products. We've chosen to make the interface much simpler in order to address a very different group of patients. So maybe there's the skepticism out there that these 80% of people who could benefit from wearing a pump will adopt because there hasn't been a product like ours before. Maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know. And usually when people say, yeah, why isn't that a problem? I cite the example of the Abbott Freestyle Libre, which, if I were to summarize very, very quickly, is Abbott introduced a product that was less capable, less accurate, and less full-featured into the continuous glucose monitor market, and within 5 years had as much share as had as much revenue and as many users as Dexcom, even though it was a less capable product, because that was a different group of users who wanted less features and wanted simplicity, and they wanted low cost. And that product doesn't exist in the pump space today, and that's really the market we're trying to address. As far as hiring a banker, what you can't do is behave in a fashion where your only exit is an exit. We are going to continue to invest money while we're figuring out exactly what our launch strategy is, exactly what strategic interest is, partnership or sale interest is. And while those things are going on in the background, what I do know is that anything we invest in the line, in the ability to make product at better margins, faster, and continue to improve the product and add the few features that we don't have in it because we didn't want to take regulatory risk on those features, that's going to be accrue value to this asset, whether or not we own it or someone else owns it. And so while we're figuring these things out, that's what we're spending our money on.
Gotcha. Is there anything you could offer out to ones that are following your process? Some next steps to go to market. Where do you go from here?
Well, in order to go to market, we have to have real people use it in a semi-controlled setting, delivering insulin, just to make sure that we work out any potential kinks, because obviously usability and learnability is really important for a product that's trying to address people who want a simpler solution. We absolutely are going to go back and get ACE clearance, and we're going to add a flavor of insulin that we don't have on the label, even though patients buy the insulin separately, so it doesn't, it's going to be up to them what they put in the pump. Mm-hmm. We're absolutely continuing to make improvements to the design and that don't require FDA approval, and improve the manufacturability of the product. And we're in lots of discussions right now as far as how to take this product to market if we end up going in that direction, because I think that our product fundamentally can be and should be marketed differently than the other products, because it's so much easier to learn.
Therefore, might require less from a marketing standpoint to physicians, or?
Yes, might require a lot less. And we're not going into a practice and saying, how many of your MiniMed customers do you have coming off their 4-year warranty that we could have access to? We're coming in and saying, tell us about the 10 to 20 patients that we've heard repeatedly from diabetes educators. They all know who these initial patients would be, who have said, I want a pump, but it's not one of those. What's new that you have for me that might work for my lifestyle and my situation and my level of technical sophistication and motivation? And the answer for a long time has been, I have nothing for you. Try harder, be more motivated, be more technical, which is not a very satisfying answer.
Got it. Thank you. Well, Jeb, we've had you on a little bit longer than I expected today, and thank you. I know you have meetings here to get to. I wanted to just remind everybody again, Jeb's coming out to some manner of our events across the U.S. We just added the 35th event site out in the Philadelphia area, and next week, in fact, November 19th, I will have Jeb presenting at 6:30 p.m. at a tribe dinner event in Radnor. If you're familiar with the Philadelphia area, you know Radnor. And if you're interested, to please give us a call or email, at least email me us at events@tribepublic.com. Again, events@tribepublic.com. I'm happy to try to get you a seat at this event, as we have a number of folks that are very excited to meet Jeb and ask further questions of him and the Modular Medical opportunity. Again, simple as MODD. And I want to thank you, Jeb, for taking out a good bit of your day, and all the tribe members that came on here. Again, remind you that we'll get this event video out and published at the Tribe Public YouTube channel, and we'll do our best to get that out. And we'll, at the end of the week, we put out our weekly Tribe This Week newsletter. We'll include it in there, so if anybody missed it, you can go back and find it that easily that way. And again, thank you, and look forward to having all of you on soon again. And Jeb, thanks again, and look forward to getting future updates. Excited to where you're having this, and thanks again for moving this product and getting the clearance in the FDA. It's been an exciting run, and to see where you're going to take this. I'm on pins and needles and excited to see. So thank you again.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today.
All the best.